All right, Jonathan, we
Yes.
have a guest host today, Mr. Samuel. Samuel and I go a few years back. We used to work together. Thank you for joining us, Samuel.
Oh, thank you.
And
Nice seeing you again.
yeah, it's great to see you. And yeah, so we're gonna talk about tech birthdays. So we'll let you kick it off, Jonathan.
All right. We'll start off with J. Alderson or Adelson, who's known for Revision 3, who was born on September 7th.
Man, this guy's our age, Sam.
I know.
Is that good or bad?
Well, I mean, he did something.
I've never really heard of this guy.
He was born in Detroit. I lived in Detroit for a while. I'll tell you something. Detroit in the 80s was the worst. Oh, he went to Boston University. Oh, wow.
You didn't go to Boston, did you?
No. I had a lot of friends that went there, and computer science wasn't his main thing. It was just a concentration. He studied film and broadcasting. That's interesting.
What is a concentration in computer science? What does that
It's like
mean?
a minor, I think.
Oh, interesting.
Maybe it's less than a minor, just like a little bit. Classes here and there.
Like if this film and broadcasting doesn't work out, computer science.
Yeah.
Oh man. Okay, so after his experience at Equinix and Stress's associate and his work in the government cybersecurity following 9/11, Alderson moved to Pawling, New York. So he went from San Rafael to Pawling, New York, commuted from New York to San Francisco. That's a hell of a commute. That's a longer commute than what I have right now.
Wow. But that's an example of somebody, like generally people tend to, when they go from the East Coast to the West Coast, they don't go back, mostly because of the weather, I think. But he must have found something good if it brought him back to New York.
So apparently he's like, since 2003, he's been with the United States House Homeland Security Subcommittee on Emerging Threats, Cybersecurity, and Science and Technology, part of the panel for the private sector role in keeping America's cyberspace secure. So this film and broadcasting major who concentrated in computer science is a security expert for Homeland Security.
And that's job security, no pun intended. Considering the rise of cyber criminals, ransomware, and stuff like that. That's a big industry to be in right now, is cybersecurity.
So if you take computer science as a concentration, which is, Jonathan, you said less than a minor?
I feel like it would be, because like it doesn't have like a title or anything.
Yeah. And I mean, this is kind of a person who studied film and broadcasting and then just said, hey, I'm just going to go to the government and tell them that I'm familiar with cybersecurity and pick up a contract and have them fly me back and forth between New York and San Francisco.
Nice.
Is that?
That's the impression I get.
I wonder how he decided to do that too. Just like
Apparently it was after 9/11. 9/11 just kind of changed the world, and film and broadcasting experts got into cybersecurity. But you know what? Actually, there is a thing between film and broadcasting and security, because there's a lot of piracy and with movies. And so when you're trying to protect your intellectual property, when that, things that you film and stuff like that, you have to learn about security in order to avoid it from getting out to the internet. And if it does get out to the internet, you want to be able to put some type of signature on those files to identify who leaked this, what source leaked this. So yeah, I can totally see the connection with security on this thing.
Cool.
I mean, we started out making fun of the guy, but it turned out to be something legitimate. All right.
Cool. Well,
Jay?
that's Jay.
All right.
Next up, we have David Packard, who's known for HP,
Interesting.
part of the P and
Hewlett Packard.
he's the P in HP.
Wow.
You just didn't go there, Jonathan, did you?
Packard served as president of the Uniformed Services University of Health Sciences from 1976 till I was 5 years old. He was a member of the Trilateral Commission. Wow. I haven't heard about that in a while. The Trilateral Commission, that was the, geez, I don't even remember. When he got the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 1988.
So wait a second. He's an electrical engineer. Didn't you study electrical engineer, Sam?
Well,
It didn't quite work out that way, did it?
no.
Okay, we'll get to that story later. That's
I still don't fully know what electrical engineering is.
I'm sure we could probably look it up on Wikipedia. So he was president of Hewlett Packard from 64, serving as president. Wow, Hewlett Packard was founded in 1939. What the heck did they do in 1939? I just know them for printers and computers.
That's interesting. I know in high school they had a graphing calculator, so I think they were into electronics of some form.
Interesting. So from 47 to 64, and then he was CEO for 64 to 68. And then he served as chairman of the board from 64 to 68 and 72 through 93. And then he also served as the U.S. Deputy Secretary of Defense from 69 to 71 during the Nixon administration. The plot thickens.
Oh boy.
This is interesting. Packard also served as president of the Uniformed Services University of the Health Sciences, USU, from 76 to 81. This guy's he's been a lot of things, huh?
Yeah, pretty smart guy.
No, you know what? Sam, tell me if you agree with me. People do not get to be in these positions because they're smart. They get to be in these positions because they can deal with people's attitudes.
I think that would help, especially being the Secretary of Defense, because when you're at that level in government, there's a lot of politics and dealing with all that nonsense. I mean, we see it today in Trump's cabinet when he was around, and you know, if you're not able to deal with people, like, you were gone. But today is a little bit different, because back then it was about dealing with people and working well with others. In Trump's cabinet, it was more always saying yes and stepping back and not asking questions. Oh, times have changed.
Oh my goodness. All right.
All right,
Jonathan.
Next up, we have Dennis Ritchie.
This is one of my favorites.
Hey,
You know who Dennis? Familiar. You know who he is, right, Sam?
Oh, he's one of he created the C language.
Yes.
Him
along with Ken Thompson.
Hey, there's a B programming language? What is that? That's interesting.
There's even A, or was it called Algo? Is that what's considered the A language? Algo? And then came B, and then they settled at C or something like that.
geez, that's too old for me. I mean, these languages.
So Dennis Ritchie was working at Bell Labs, and here's a story that I know. That tell me if you've heard the same story, Sam. These guys worked at Bell Labs, and they needed a way to abstract the machine language from the Unix operating system, because I guess moving from one version of Unix to the next, or moving from one hardware to the next, was causing them to have to reprogram a lot of their programs.
Yeah, from scratch.
Correct. So by abstracting the machine language to C, this would allow them to run the same C program, or compile the same C program across different versions of Unix and across different sets of hardware, without having to rewrite the program, but just having to create a new compiler that was specific for the hardware that was being used.
That's right. So you had the same source code, and you would have to compile it for different hardwares, which means you didn't have to rewrite code, which was nice.
Yeah, yeah. And you just have to create a
And
new
you know
compiler.
who else worked at Bell Labs and probably still works there is Bjorn Straustrup. He was the founder of C++.
He doesn't work there anymore. You know where he works now?
No.
He works for Google, and he's the one that created the Go language.
Are you kidding me?
I am not kidding you. We'll talk about that in our main segment, okay?
Wow.
But going back to Dennis Ritchie and Ken Thompson, you know, they're the ones that actually wrote the Unix operating system. And so when they created the C language, it wasn't called open source back then, but they opened it up to the community. And once it was opened up to the community, Bell Labs could no longer bring it in and say, no, this is proprietary. That's how C actually became public domain. And now
That's awesome.
And now there's like an ANSI C community, not community, but what is it called? A committee. And so they're the ones that actually maintain it. But yeah, once Dennis Ritchie, and again, this is the story that I've heard. If it's different, definitely correct. And we don't want to, share any misinformation. But my understanding was that they opened it up to the community, and by that point, it was out there. The source code was out there for the compilers, for the specs for the language, the whole thing. And Bell Labs couldn't bring it back in and make it proprietary at that point. And that's how we ended up with this ANSI C committee that now steers the future of C++ and stuff like that.
That's very interesting, because nowadays when a company comes out with something and they don't want to make it open source, like Microsoft, for example, they didn't make .NET or any of the CLR open source for the longest time. But then they realized that with security threats on the rise, the more people you have looking at your open source code and reporting bugs, the more safer your code becomes. And I think that's one of the reasons why Microsoft finally caved and made everything open source.
Yeah.
They still don't have everything open source, mind you. Like I think their browser software for Edge, I don't think is open source, and a few other things. But the main technology, .NET and everything else, they've made open source.
Yep.
And also, I think they knew with .NET that they couldn't keep it hidden. Anyone could just run a disassembler and look at the source code anyway.
Yeah. And that's the same thing with the C, right? C, you can just take an exe file that was written in C, and you can look at the machine code, right, and figure out what it's supposed to do.
You could actually roll it back to assembler.
Yep.
And look at it from the assembler language.
The same way you do with .NET. .NET, you can go from the compiled code to intermediate language, right? which is what all .NET languages compiled down to.
Yep.
And so like C++ and C, they compile to assembly, and then assembly compiles down further to machine code.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
And it's, the C language wouldn't be what it was today if it wasn't open source, because a lot of people, not just the authors, have made contributions to it, to the compiler and stuff like that.
Yep.
There's even different versions of it. There's ANSI C, there's different types of C that have different benefits. Oh, he died in October 2011.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That was announced. It actually came out in the news.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So this is a guy that you would thank, Jonathan, because of C# and JavaScript. He came up with the bracket, with the curly brace syntax.
Yes, all that is known as C style notation. And it's very efficient. It's used to this day. Of course, other languages like Python and I think Go is one of them, trying to move away from that.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't understand why. It's a good thing.
It is. Yeah, I like it. I wish SQL had that.
Oh, yeah. Jeez. If I could pick one language that needs C style syntax, it's SQL.
Yeah.
It was awful.
What's interesting is that when I look up a lot of our, tech birthday people, I get like 1 or 2 hits on Google, but Dennis Ritchie, man, it comes up in so many hits. I mean, he even comes up in Britannica, which is an encyclopedia company. New York Times, when it was announced when he died at the age of 70. Wired magazine, right along the side with Steve Jobs, So that's how important this guy was in
Unix.
In the text.
Wow.
Cool. Well, thank you, Dennis.
Yeah. Who else do we got, Jonathan?
Next up, we have Dick Costolo, who is known for Twitter and born on September 10th.
Interesting.
He was the CEO of Twitter from 2010 to 2015. He also served as the COO before becoming the CEO. And he took over Evan Williams in 2010. Evan Williams was the founder, right?
I think so, yeah.
Oh, no. Jack Dorsey was the founder.
Yep.
Evan Williams was the next guy.
Wow, Twitter.
So that's what this guy's famous for being the 3rd CEO of Twitter.
Got a degree in computer and communication sciences from University of Michigan.
Do they have a pretty good science program over in University of Michigan?
I've heard a lot of good things about University of Michigan. And I've known a few people who've gone there. I know you're thinking it's in Michigan, but it's like an oasis. It's a really nice university. The rest of the surrounding parts of Michigan, it's not so good.
Michigan, is that where you just came from, Jonathan? You went on a trip?
Went to Wisconsin.
Oh, Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Other side of the lake.
Still touch the lake, yeah.
The other side of the lake.
But in defense of University of Michigan, at least it's not Detroit or in Detroit.
Here's something interesting about this guy. Upon graduation, he decided not to accept offers from technology companies and instead moved to Chicago to work in improvisational comedy.
I should have done that. Damn. I knew it.
Oh my goodness. I guess he realized that it didn't pay well, and so he went back to technology.
I have to respect that, though. He went and did something that he liked doing. For better or for worse. You got to respect anyone who does that.
Yeah. Definitely. Most definitely. So he along with a bunch of other people, Eric Lunt, Steve Elorjowski, Matt Schob, founded web feed management provider FeedBurner. And then that was bought from Google in 2007. So he's made a little chunk of money.
Nice.
In March or May 2011, it was announced that President Obama had appointed Costolo to the National Security Telecommunication Advisory Committee. You know, most of our birthdays are involved with the government in some way.
Mm-hmm.
I guess this is if you have no criminal activity, you can go work with the government, huh?
Well, that's not fair.
I know. Who else would know about criminals than criminals, right?
We just had a criminal president too. Come on. You can't tell me they did a background check on Trump.
What else do we got, Jonathan?
Next up, we have Gunpei Yoki.
What is he known for?
Wait, what's that writing? Is it Japanese?
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you know Japanese?
Konnichiwa.
Konnichiwa.
That's all.
Arigato.
Sega Genesis.
Nintendo.
So Japanese video game designer. He was a longtime Nintendo employee. Best known for the creator of game and watch handle system. The inventor,
cool.
cross-shape. Oh, he was the inventor of the cross-shape control pad.
And the Game Boy. Cool.
And the Game Boy.
This impacts me.
How so?
This is tangible. That control pad, I've been using that for years. Look at that old Game Boy.
Yeah.
That was brilliant. That cross-shaped thumb pad. We take it for granted, but someone had to have invented that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You couldn't push up and down at the same time. You couldn't push up left and right at the same time, but you could go up left. You could go up right. That's brilliant.
Jonathan, you had this Game Boy, didn't you?
Yeah, I think I still
We
have
all
it.
did at one point, right?
Say what?
I think we all had one of these.
I wasn't fortunate enough to have one of those. The kids had it. I guess I had it through the kids, but I never got a chance to play with it. They wouldn't let me play with it.
I got mine through a yard sale.
Oh, and it worked?
Yeah, I was like, wow. And then they had so many different versions, but I have to tell you, if you look at every video game controller since, they've had that cross thumb pad on it.
Mm-hmm.
I know some of the newer ones, like maybe Xbox, they're trying to do that little toggle switch, that stick that sticks out. I don't know what you call that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like is it called a D-pad or something? They're still trying to transition to that, but I feel like this cross pad has stood the test of time. Like,
Yeah.
you can't really improve upon that. You can replace it, but you can't really improve upon it. That was the standard.
Yeah. So here's another interesting fact, Jonathan.
Mhm.
In 1981, Yamauchi appointed Yokoi to supervise Donkey Kong. Remember we talked about this?
Oh, wow. He helped with Donkey Kong?
He supervised it. Yeah.
Wow. Imagine being able to put that on your resume.
Can you imagine? You think you'd get hired easier? Like, what? You created Donkey Kong? It's like, we don't even ask you any questions.
You know the story behind why it was called Donkey Kong? I think it originally was going to be called Monkey Kong, and then they misspelled it. But it was too late in the production cycle, so they just had to release it as what? As it was.
Oh, that
Donkey
is
Kong, the name's
hilarious. That is hilarious.
that's one of those amazing things.
Yeah.
That's cool.
That's pretty neat. That's pretty legendary.
I know there is no donkeys in Donkey Kong either. Like, why is it donkey?
Yeah, it was just a typo. And they had already printed all the cartridges and everything before they could go back and fix it.
Was it because of the way the translation from the Japanese characters to English that they misspelled it? Is that what happened?
I don't know the full story. I think it might have been that, because they didn't catch it,
Mm-hmm.
and it was on all the posters and everything.
That's crazy.
And they couldn't use the name King Kong because that would have been that's
Infringement.
trademark to the movies.
Yeah, that was an infringement on the movies.
But they wanted to use the name Kong and then Monkey Kong, this big monkey. I think he imprisoned. Oh no, he imprisoned the princess, and then Mario had to go rescue her.
Yeah.
Which I don't know if it's the same princess in later games. Like, there's all these fan stories of trying to piece stuff together.
That's cool. What else we got, Jonathan?
Next up, we have Carl Zeiss.
Who is this guy? Have you heard of him, Jet Sam?
Carl Zeiss. No. German manufacturer of optical systems.
Maker of optical instruments.
1846. Wow.
Yeah, we get a lot of technology. I mean, would you consider fiber an optical technology?
Technically it is, right?
Yeah, because it's glass, right?
It's not glass per se, but it transmits light.
Yeah. And the speed of light is pretty fast from the last time I heard it. Well, I didn't hear it, but last time I heard about it. Last time I saw it. I mean, you flip that switch, man, light comes on.
I can tell you a story about the speed of light.
Tell us the story.
So if you scale down the universe to where the moon, where the sun and the earth are only 1 inch apart. So right now the earth is about 91 million miles from the sun. But if you scaled everything down to where the earth is only just an inch from the sun, how close would the nearest star be? Proxima Centauri, let's say. Believe it or not.
I would say 10 miles.
Close. It will be about 4 miles.
Oh, okay.
But that's a good guess because that kind of lets you know the scale, the massive scale of the universe.
Yeah.
Like, that's pretty far away. That's just the nearest star.
Yeah. And when they say a star, they're not just indicating it's a planet. It's indicating it's a other solar system, right?
Yeah, it's another sun. And they're finding that most other stars out there have planets.
So to be like, we're a star, our solar system, our sun is,
which is very interesting.
Well, our sun is considered a star, right?
Yes.
To another solar system.
It's a smaller star compared to the other ones. On average, our sun is I think it's called a yellow dwarf. Because there's some big stars out there.
Oh, I could imagine. So Carl Zeiss is a guy who appears in our tech birthdays because opticals are used in technology a lot. I mean, we just came up with the whole thing on fiber, which is a sort of way of transmitting light. So I can see where this guy would come out, but he was also involved with optoelectronics, and that's a term that I've never heard. Have you?
I imagine wouldn't that be related to like CD players, DVDs, stuff like that, or photonics?
Okay, so this is more dealing with light that often includes invisible forms of radiation such as gamma rays, X-ray, ultraviolet, infrared, in addition to visible light.
Yeah, you know who uses this? NASA, in detecting and in being able to view the universe. They try to pick up X-rays and infrared light that's not
Hmm,
really visible, but it
correct.
travels through like the dust in space, so they can get better images of what's out there.
Ah. You know, it's funny. I mean, you got these people who were born in the 1800s and created this technology, and then we used some of this technology today, you know, which seems modern and groundbreaking, but in reality, it's antique technology. You know, it's very old. They're finding new applications for it. It just seems like to me.
Yeah, it's very rare when somebody discovers something like totally new.
Mhm.
Usually it's something from before and they just improve upon it.
Yeah. It's something a little side note, but one of the things that I recently found out was that our encryption today is based on math from the 17th century. Does that sound about right to you?
Wow.
They found patterns, but they had no use for it. They're like, okay, cool, this is neat stuff, but there's no use for it until 3,000 years later that they realize, oh, wait a second. I'm not 3,000 years, 300 years later, that computers can calculate some of this math a lot quicker. They're like, oh, we can use this math from that was discovered back in the 17th century or the 16th century. I forget what century it was, and use it for encryption purposes.
That is interesting.
You never heard about that?
I know a lot of the math we use today is from anywhere from a few hundreds to few thousand years ago.
Yeah, yeah.
Some math like pi, the calculation of pi, they have records of it in ancient civilizations that were destroyed in India, for
Oh
example.
wow. Oh wow.
And they only recently, by recent, I mean the past 100 years, discovered that, hey, these ancient scripts that we were just able to translate now, they had calculations for pi. It might not have been out to a few million places, but they encountered that problem in math and they tried
Wow.
to address it. So it's very interesting that we feel like, you know, some Greek mathematician came up with pi, but in reality, there were ancient civilizations long before the Greeks who dealt with the same issue. Like they have a circle, they tried to divide it by its diameter, and oh, what a weird number came up.
Yeah, yeah.
Why isn't it 3? It's just a little more than 3. Well, how much more? The number goes on
3.14.
forever. I'd like to show you something interesting about that. In the first 1,000 digits of pi, the number 6 repeats like 6 times in a row.
Oh, interesting.
And that tricked one of the mathematicians from a few hundred years ago who thought, oh, I just reached the point where the number just keeps repeating. That's it, that's pi. And it wasn't until many years later, someone's like, well, let me pick up the calculation again. And nope, it's just 6 sixes in a row. And then it continues on, just random numbers.
Oh, interesting.
In fact, you can Google the first 1,000 digits of pi, and you can see for yourself. I think it's either 6 or 9. One of those is repeated like 6 times in a row.
Huh.
Oh,
Old technology is new technology these days, huh?
I'm telling you.
Cool.
all right.
What else do we got, Jonathan?
Last but not least, we have Jerry Sanders.
Now we're cooking with fire. So this guy,
Longtime CEO of the American semiconductor manufacturer, Advanced Micro Devices. Wow. Okay.
AMD.
There he is.
Grew up in the south side of Chicago.
Isn't this where
He
you
was
grew up?
once attacked and beaten by a street gang. leaving him so covered in blood that a priest was called to administer the last rites. Wow.
Wow.
I said it before and I'll say it again. Chicago.
That's all you got to say, huh? So he got his bachelor's degree in engineering. You know, a lot of really good developers either had electrical engineering or just general engineering degrees, or mechanical engineering. You know, it's like those three. I've seen a lot of people that are really passionate, and I mean, they're not only are they good developers. I mean, they're exceptional developers, but they're very passionate. You know, taking up. If you take any of those three degrees, it's just been my common observation that those people turn out to be really good software developers.
I think it's because there's that mindset. There's like like the right side of your brain type of thing where you're more technically focused. And you go into engineering thinking, well, I'll try mechanics because I like to build stuff, or I'll try electrical engineering because I like electronics. And a lot of those people discover software and are like, hey, I can do that.
Mm-hmm.
And boom, I can do it for a living. Yay. It's
Although
similar to engineering. It's just that it's all virtual.
Yeah. And I can see where his engineering degree helped him with the AMD processor.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
Well,
That's all hardware.
He's engineering. I don't know that he's an electrical engineer, but if he's an electrical engineer, it just says in engineering. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure his engineering degree helped him quite a bit with AMD.
Cool.
Are you a Pentium guy or are you an AMD guy, Sam?
I don't. I just bought an HP computer that was like fully loaded. It has a graphics card. I think it's an Intel graphics card. But in the graphics card department, I think AMD has an edge over Intel.
Yeah.
Both in cost and in performance. And also, I think they use slightly less power than Intel's.
Correct. Yeah. Well, I mean, lately we've been looking at the Ryzen processor from AMD, and I think it actually surpasses some of the performance aspects of the Pentium, even the i9 processor.
Yeah, it's been difficult for them to catch up, and it seems like right now they have an edge over Intel.
Mm-hmm.
I think part of the reason now might have to do with the chip shortage, but because what happens with the shortage is the cost of these chips go up, and so people aren't buying the latest i8, i9 Intel processors because they're getting too expensive.
Yeah.
Not only are they getting too expensive, but they're in short supply, so they're just sticking with what they have. Meanwhile, AMD can beat them on price. So I think they're making a good comeback. Hopefully, they can maintain it.
Yeah. No, I'm actually thinking about building a computer using the Ryzen AMD processor. So I've always used their processors. It costs a lot less. So
cool.
They're doing something right.
Yeah, they are.
They were down for a while. I remember there were rumors on Wall Street that they were going to be bought out. I forget by who, but I think they bounced back.
Yeah. Very cool.
All right. That's all we have for this week in tech birthdays.
All right. Thanks for joining us, Sam.
Hey, no problem.
Cool. Until next time.
Later.